It was an exciting week on the market last week, including release of earnings reports of Micron, FedEx, and Cerebras. Companies like ON Semiconductors and Palantir had unexpected moves. Let's go through some of them. Palantir had quite a ride last week. It started Monday by undercutting the one standard deviation level at 121.5. On Tuesday, price retested that level only to keep dropping. The bleeding finally stopped at the 3 standard deviation level near 107.5. The chances of closing the week outside a 3 standard deviation move is only about 0.3%. That means the likelihood for at least a small bounce from this level. Palantir had quite a ride last week. It started Monday by undercutting the 1 standard deviation level at 121.5. On Tuesday, price retested that level only to keep dropping. The bleeding finally stopped at the 3 standard deviation level near 107.5. The chances of closing the week outside a 3 standard deviation move is only about 0.3%. That means the likelihood for at least a small bounce from this level were pretty decent. For this week, expiring July 2nd, Palantir's implied move is 5.3%. That sets a range between 107 and 118.9. We can apply those levels directly on our chart, simply by clicking the icon that copies 3 standard deviations for the ticker this week, and then paste them straight into our custom indicator. That gets us visual representation of up to 3 standard deviations moved directly on our chart. Each standard deviation level represents a probability range for stock closing within that move by week's end. The first standard deviation covers about 68% of cases, 2 covers roughly 95%, and 3 about 99.7%. ON Semiconductors opened in pre-market almost right at the upper implied level for the week, 132. Later that week, price retraced to eventually fell nearly 3 standard deviations down to around 90. The drop was triggered by news around merger and acquisition headlines. For this week, July 2, options market priced in 9.8% move in either direction, which is 885. For 1 standard deviation, lower implied move sits at 81.8 and upper 99.5. We can easily get those levels up to 3 standard deviation on our chart. Microsoft in last week on Monday dropped to its lower expected move at 365.6 and stay around this level for quite some time. Even that on Friday it cut below it, there was 68% of chances that price gonna close week above 365.65, which it did. For this week, market priced in around 4.4% expected move, which is $16 and $5. Range for 1 standard deviation, 356.5, 389.5. Since core companies introduced shorter DTE options, we can check what are the expectations for Microsoft Zero DTE expiring June 29th. Market priced in range between 363.5 and 382.5. In pre-market, we are already approaching upper daily expected move. In context of whole week, Microsoft realized 31.7% of implied move to the upside. Cerebras system, CBRS, had earnings last week, dropped to its 2 standard deviation move at 160.3, and find buyers at that level. For this week expiration, 2nd of July, options market priced in 20.3 expected move in either direction, roughly 11.2%. In pre-market, we already approaching upper weekly expected move at 201.9. For this week, expiring July 2nd, here's what the options market is pricing in across our watch list. Starting with SBY, the implied move is 1.81%, plus or minus $13.17. That sets a 1 standard deviation range between 715.82 and 742.16. For AMD, options are pricing a 7.7% move in either direction, which is $40.15. Range, 481.43 on the lower side, 561.73 on the upper. Turning to NVIDIA, ticker NVDA, implied move sits at 3.92% or $7.55 either way. Range between 184.98 and 200.08. Microsoft, ticker MSFT, market priced in around 4.42% expected move, which is $16.5. 1 standard deviation range, 356.47 to 389.47. Google, ticker Google, 4.09%, plus or minus $13.8. Range from 323.59 up to 351.19. Tesla, ticker Tesla, 4.78% move, $18.15 in either direction. Lower bound at 361.56, upper at 397.86. Netflix, ticker NFLX, 3.6% implied move, $2.66. Range between 71.15 and 76.47. DraftKings, ticker DKNG, 6.23%, $1.6 either way. Range, 24.1 to 27.3. Palantir, ticker PLTR, implied move is 5.29%, $5.97. That sets a range between 106.96 and 118.9. Amazon, ticker Amazon, 4.38%, $10.2. Range from 222.49 to 242.89. Texas Instruments, ticker TXN, 6.69% move, $19.1. Lower implied move at 266.33, upper at 304.53. ON Semiconductor, ticker on options market priced in 9.76% in either direction, which is $8.85. Lower implied move sits at 81.8, upper at 99.5. Block, ticker XYZ, 4.73%, $3.68. Range between 74.14 and 81.5. Micron Technology, ticker MU, the options market is pricing an expected move of 10.33%, plus or minus $117. That sets a trading range between 1,015.33 and 1,249.33. And Marvell, ticker MRVL, implied move around 10.12%, $27 either way. Range from 239.77 up to 293.77. Before we wrap up, a quick word on standard deviations. The ranges we walked through are the 1 standard deviation levels. That gives you about a 68% chance price closes the week within that range. 2 standard deviations, 95% chance of a weekly close inside. Only about 5% chance price closes outside that wider band. 3 standard deviations, 99.7% inside. Roughly 0.3% chance of closing outside, a true tail event. We got an example of 3 standard deviation move last week on Palantir. Hence, it was likely we gonna see a bounce back inside the range, as the move was way overextended. In normal market conditions, meaning we're excluding catalysts like earnings reports, headline news, or a broad market sell-off, price action typically stays within 1 standard deviation, and it tends to react to those levels, at least initially. You'll often see price stall, bounce, or pause right around the lower or upper 1 SD band. When unusual activity hits a stock, like an earnings report, price has a tendency to exceed 1 standard deviation and push well beyond what options had priced in. We saw that recently with names like FedEx and Cerebras, both finishing the week outside their implied range at more than 100% of the expected move. The same applies to companies riding unusually strong demand, where price can grow much faster than the market anticipated. Micron, ticker MU, is a good example from the last few quarters. Options kept pricing in a weekly range, and price repeatedly pushed through the upper bound for that given week. For each ticker on the chart, you can track how much of the weekly implied move has already been used, to the upside or to the downside. If a stock has only realized 30% of its implied move, there's still a lot of room left in the expectation. If it's already at 100% or more, the market has fully priced that week's move, and any further push starts leaning into 2 or 3 standard deviation territory. Keep an eye on that realized move percentage alongside the 1, 2, and 3 SD levels. It tells you not just where price can go, but how much of the expectation is already spent.